Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Programmatic. This is Michael, and this is a new podcast I'm doing on my channel, and it will be on its own feed as well. So I'm really excited about this show, and I hope that you will join me each week as we do this new show. I will be getting us started here very soon. And YouTube's giving me stuff to check out. So Taylor's already in the chat. So hello, Taylor. I'll be getting started with the podcast momentarily. I want to get speech chat going in Chrome. So we'll get started. We'll be filming this live each week on this channel. And we will get that going. I'm really excited about starting this podcast. It's going to be a great show. Really excited about it. So if you're in chat, say hello. I will be getting started soon. I'll be taking question and answers throughout the episode, so feel free to send those. So yes, all right. For people that are in chat, I'll explain about the podcast in just a second once we get started. If anybody's in chat, please say hello. Let me know that you're out there so I know that my speech chat is working. All right, that came out loud and clear through my headphones. So yes, speech chat is working. All right, we're using Zoom to record this and to make this happen. So really excited. All right. Let's get this started. And a 3 and a 2 and a hello. Welcome to the Programmatic Podcast. This is a podcast that will be done every week to talk about programming. My name is Michael Doise, and we're here with a live audience on YouTube. So really happy that everybody's here, and I want to say welcome to everybody. It's really exciting to be doing this. And, I've always had a passion for programming. So the podcast is a complete podcast dedicated to programming. We're going to talk about all kinds of different topics from techniques to methodologies to, programming languages, what's more popular, what's not popular, which ones I like, which ones I don't like, and which ones you like, and which ones you don't like. And we'll be doing polls and things like that. We're going to probably have accounts on Twitter and Mastodon and all over the place. So I'm really excited about this. This show will be recorded on a Friday and then come out the next Friday. So I'm really, really excited that we'll be here with you each week to talk programming. Programming, like I said before, is very exciting to me, and I just can't wait to share it with all of you guys. So, I kind of just realized I was not too close to my microphone because I was trying to look at the camera. That's one of the things about these microphones is you have to be pretty close to it. So we're going to take a cut break because I want to see how that was coming through. Thankfully, I have the YouTube stream right here. Okay, so yeah, that's the only thing about this that could use some work. So let me fix my seating arrangement to where I can be heard and seen. I was pretty audible, but I still didn't care for the quality. So we're going to try to fix that. So, okay. Unfortunately, folks, I'll still have to be looking down, but to talk in the microphone, I need to work on a better setup for my recording, but we will get there. So give me just a second. Now, I've noticed that Zoom kind of noise cancels if you're too far away, so it sounds very artifacty. I'm going to do that intro again, so everything will be cut. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Programmatic, a weekly podcast discussing programming. My name is Michael Dowies, and I'm going to be here every week. I'm so used to talking on other podcasts that I say things a certain way, and you just get used to things. So we're here this and every week to talk about programming, and I'm really excited to be able to do this podcast. I've always been interested in podcasting, my whole life. Taylor, this is reminding me of how you start out shows. All right, take three. Take three. This is not starting out the best. Okay, so let's try this again. Oh, I could tell she's listening in the other room because I heard, hey! Hey, at least there's going to be some good. Watch out. Oh, well, at least this will be a live stream to remember for sure, folks. So, this is just practice runs, I guess. So, and hey, since we've been sitting here, we've got a new subscriber. Well, this is true. This is very true. Also, I want to give a shout out to Speech Chat. Speech Chat is reading all my chats to me, which is really great. I love it. Okay, so let's try this again. So 3, 2, 1. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the Programmatic Podcast, a weekly podcast about programming. I'm Michael Dowies, and this will be a weekly podcast to talk about, programming. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I've been interested in programming ever since I was young, so I'm glad to be here. And it's really cool to be on my own podcast about programming. And we're doing this live weekly and on YouTube, and we'll look at other methodologies as well. So this podcast will be about programming and how to write programs. We'll be talking about how to write code, how to test your code, how to automate things, how to use shortcuts, how to use things on Android, Tasker, how to do pretty much anything to add programming into your life. Because the truth of the matter is, if you add one small thing of programming, like if you automate something in your life, you're using programming with computers. So this podcast is dedicated to the beginner and to the intermediate and to the expert. So we'll have content for all of those things. And you might say, well, okay, if I'm a beginner and you're talking about expert level stuff, how do I figure that out? And the best way is how I got started, and that's Googling it. Say, I'm talking about a URL session. What the heck is a URL session? Google it. Say, what is a URL session in programming? And that's going to be the best way that you learn what this stuff is, right? So we'll be talking about pretty much everything. We have Taylor in the chat who said every industry requires programming, and you're correct. Even you do finance, and that requires programming to build the applications, but also to automate, sending information from Stripe to QuickBooks or things like that. And Taylor said maybe now we should Bing it instead of Google it, and yeah, when everybody gets that feature, I agree. So we're really, programming it's such an interesting time to get into it with AI and all those things. And we'll talk about that in this podcast as well. We're also going to do programming challenges at the end of each episode. Even today, I'll be giving you a programming challenge to work on. And, we'll cover a few things before the challenge. And then we'll go over those things on the next episode. We'll talk about what those things, how to come up with a solution for the challenge. We'll also be hearing from some other voices, mechanical voices on this podcast. And I'd like to introduce them now to the podcast listeners. Sorry, you guys on YouTube. Yes, programming, according to Taylor, can help solve the labor shortages. We're going to hear now from our other folks that will be on the podcast. If you're listening after the fact, YouTube stream folks, I'm sorry, but you guys will not hear this. But I want to welcome our AI overlords. 11 Labs is AI speech, text-to-speech engines who will be reading our code in the final version of the podcast. So say hello, 11 Labs. All right, thanks, 11 Labs. That was great. So we'll have that in on the podcast so you guys can hear what you'll be hearing. And when we do code, they will be reading all of the code out loud. And that, I think that will give you guys, you'll hear my voice, but you'll also hear other voices as well. And on episode 2, you'll be able to hear that when we go over the results of the challenges. So, why program? Why even be interested in this field? Basically, why write a bunch of code? Why is it interesting? And the answer is because why is it interesting to take a piece of paper and draw something and make that come to life? Why is it interesting to take a piano, a guitar, or anything, any musical instrument, and use it to make music? You're making something from nothing. And with programming, that is what you're doing. You're taking what you know and you're making that something, that nothing, into something with your mind, with your thoughts. You're essentially telling the computer what you want to make from nothing. Before you write it, it doesn't exist. And yes, it can be used to make money, but it could also be used as art. And I fully believe that a good, well-written program is art. I look at my app, Pocket Braille, as, I offer it as a paid app. It's in the App Store, but it's also a representation of the person making it, right? And, one of the things that we talk about is making your stuff accessible. That's very important. Blind people need to be able to use your code as well as everybody else. But at the end of the day, I want people to know that even the inaccessible code, it's still art. And, a lot of people in our community, because I'm a blind programmer, legally blind, a lot of people will say it's a terrible code because it's not accessible. And I feel like that's almost an injustice to the programmers, because the programmer may not have been educated in the way to make things accessible. Or they may be told by their manager, we cannot take the time to make this accessible. And it's a shame, because the programmer wants to do better. 9 times out of 10, the programmers want to do the right thing, but they don't have the budget, the money, or the clearance to take those steps. And a lot of people do not realize that. And so I want to tell every developer out there, always strive to do more. Always strive to learn more before you start taking that blank canvas and painting your life's work with it. Because the more you're able to learn, the less criticism you'll get for your art. And I think that's one thing going into this that you have to look at is, are you going into it to solve a problem and crunch numbers? If yes, then that's okay. Programming is fine. But if you're going into it to, look at it as art, that's a totally different thing. Going into programming and looking at it as art is a way to not get burnt out on what you're doing, because every day you write a line of code, you're making art. You're solving problems and you're doing analytical things while doing it, but at the end of the day, you've taken a blank screen on an iPhone and you've made it into something wonderful. You've taken a blank screen on a desktop and you've made it into something that people will not forget. People see the product and they say, oh, a bunch of people sat in a room and developed this thing, but they don't see it as art, as I think a lot of programmers do. Or at least I see it as art. But I don't know that a lot of people see it as such. And I think that to really get people into the field of programming, we have to see it as art. And that's why we're having this podcast weekly, is so that people can see programming for something that they may not have seen it for. And I think that's important, right? For people to see programming can be a passion and an art instead of just a mindless chore. And, we have AI that can write code, and people are like, oh, AI is going to take all programming jobs in 5 years. No, it won't. No, it won't. AI will allow us to be more creative in 5 years. We'll be able to take code from AI and you do all the, as we call, boilerplate things, like creating a new view controller, which is a Swift user interface screen, and it will generate that for us, put it in our project, and we just tell it what we want to do, and it fills in as we're typing. That's where coding is going. We could say, I need this to auto layout to be pin center and 50 points up. I just watched a class on how to do that, and I can figure it out now. But I still have to look up the code because I can't remember all that. But the AI, you just prompt it and tell it what you want, and it will do it for you. And that is where AI, I think, is going to go. That is where we're going to see programming go in the next 5 years. And, eventually we may have low code to no code completely. But, I think that if you want customization and assured and promised accessibility, you're still going to need a fully coded solution or a low code solution like WordPress for a website, or React Native, or Flutter for multi-platform. You're going to need these things, guys. It's just one of those things that you're going to need. And that's just the way that it's going to have to work. Programming is going to be part of our lives for a very long time, even if it's to change the AI data models, So I think that's one of the reasons why I want to have this podcast is to talk about that. When I started writing code, it was in QBasic when I was like 10 years old. Then I went on to Quick Basic, and then Visual Basic, and then HTML and websites, JavaScript, Ajax. I wrote my own Ajax engine. And then I went on to, in 2011, Swift. Well, no, correct me. I'm corrected. Objective-C. Then I think 2015, Swift. And Android development, Java. And then JavaScript again for Cordova apps. So it's, I still want to learn Kotlin, and I want to learn Dart for Flutter. There's so many things that are out there to learn. You can't possibly learn it all. So you learn what works best for you and what you like the most, because that's the key, right? Some people really, 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 really love Java. I don't know how. I don't know how personally. I hate a language that involves like 30 plus include statements at the top of the file to bring in all of the classes that I need. If you can't see me shaking my head and just it's frustrating. It's tiring. I mean, there are IDEs like IntelliJ and Android Studio that will do it all for you, but I don't see why that's fun. JavaScript has some of that, but not nearly as much. And usually it's your own modules that you've included. Swift is very different. And I think Kotlin may be this way, but I learned, I was including everything, Foundation, UI kit, and everything else. And I learned in class, did you know that if you import UI kit, you're importing Foundation? No. So it's little things like that are like, wow, I had no clue. You're always learning something new. You're always getting better. I've been writing, UI kit for nearly 8-9 years, and I'm still learning things. So, I'm writing, Cordova apps now, and I'm learning things about that constantly. The back button gesture, very interesting stuff. How does that work? How does Cordova handle that on an Android app? And again, Cordova is a way to build apps for iPhone and Android using HTML. If you have not seen it, look it up. It's called Apache Cordova. Also was known as PhoneGap by Adobe. It's a way you could build mobile apps using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So there's so many different things that are involved there. So, during this podcast, we're going to be talking about all these things, building your apps, how to get a compiler, how to get a good IDE. What is an IDE? How to distribute your apps. How do you distribute your desktop programs? How much does all this cost? Where do you get all these things? What is even used for what? There's so many different topics we can talk about. And we're going to do it every week. And I'm really excited about this. We're going to have a segment for people that are in chat to ask questions. And I'm going to come to that here pretty soon. But I want to just say I'm really excited to be on this journey with the rest of you, and I'm just blown away that there's not many things like this out there. So I guess what I would like to do is open it up. If we have anybody in chat, ask any questions. What would you like to see on the podcast? What are things that you want out of this show? And where would you like to see the show go in the future? One of the things we're going to do as well, we'll have other people on to ask questions. And if you are or if you're new to programming and you want to get started and you want to come on and ask your questions, we'll be doing that too at times. So we're going to do all kinds of different topics. So really, thinking that we're going to involve as many people as we can. Also, I'll be putting links to our Programming for Everyone communities in the show notes, so you could join there, and I'll be promoting this show on those as well. So, how do you get started programming? Let's talk about that. There's a few websites. Free Code Camp is one. Codecademy is another. They have step-by-step free courses. They have paid courses as well, but I would check those out. They're very good course platforms. So check into those. LinkedIn Learning has helped me a lot. I'm no longer on that service, but it's still great. So check that out. Also, there's YouTubers for pretty much anything you want to learn. On iOS side of things, Two Straws or Paul Hudson does the Hacking with Swift series. Very good stuff. Sean Allen does some great, amazing Swift lessons and Swift UI. There's others out there. Those are kind of the ones I follow because I'm very much into iOS programming and things like that. So those guys are great YouTubes. Coding with Chris is another one. Fireship for JavaScript. He's amazing. He does these whatever language in 90 seconds courses. So those are a lot of fun. So there's a lot of great courses out there for free. You don't even have to pay for some of this stuff, folks. You just take advantage of what's online. Again, there's LinkedIn Learning. You can pay for that and get some great materials. So, yeah. And we'll do a deeper dive probably next time on what's the right language for you to learn as well. So where do you go for resources other than learning? It depends on what you're trying to do, but like for Apple, there's, the Apple Developer app for Mac has some great resources and documents. The Hacking with Swift website is great. Just Googling will be great. Stack Overflow has some great articles, and even just looking in ChatGPT can give you inspiration. It's not always right, but it can give you inspiration and then help you on your way to find what's right. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you have the right equipment. You're not going to be able to do this on a Chromebook, folks. I hate to tell you. I mean, there are some Chromebooks that have the specs that can do this, but a $200 Chromebook is not going to be the best for programming. So get yourself a little computer that, at least an i5, 128 gigs of hard drive space will be the minimum. And, 8 gigs of RAM is the minimum. More you can get, the better. So it just depends on what you're doing. If you're doing iOS development, you definitely want to be on a Mac. That is very important. And preferably an Apple Silicon-based Mac, though that's the best way to build those because you can test it right on the Mac. You don't have to have it on your phone. And if you're building web-based applications, you do want to have Google Chrome, and That's because of some requirements that it has built in. So there's a lot of different things that you'll need. You'll need an IDE, which is integrated developer environment for whatever you're trying to do, and we'll talk about that in detail. But all of those things are good resources. Okay, I want to give one last call to see if there's anybody in chat and that has any questions, and then we're going to go and jump onto our challenge for the day. Okay, so our challenge for today is simple. We want to build a basic Hello World application that can take input, and instead of saying Hello World, it will say hello and then the person's name. You'll need to create a variable to hold the name and get the input. This will be a console-based application. So, if you're using Visual Studio, for C# or C++, you want to build a console application. And then you'll also want to, take input, store it in a variable, and print that output on screen. I will, if you would like to send those to me, mikedowies@icloud.com, and I can take those in and look at them, and I'll send you back if I have any feedback. But what you can do is if you send me those, we'll make it a contest, and I will have 11 labs read out the most interesting solution on screen, and then I'll show my solution or one or two solutions in different languages. So that's pretty exciting. So, another thing we'll talk about as we go is source control, how to use Git. What are some different methods for using Git? Some different techniques, Git flow, other things, continuous integration, continuous delivery, or CI/CD as it's called. We'll talk about those things. We'll talk about a lot of different topics here on this show. So I'm really excited to experience all of this with you all. So that's going to do it for episode 1 of Programmatic. This is Michael, and we will see you on the episode that we will be recording next week. So thanks again for joining me. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, share, turn on notifications, all those things that you would normally do for YouTube. And thanks again for joining me. And we will see you all in the next episode.